Welcome, everyone, to this deep dive. We're aiming to give you, well, a direct path to really understanding the big global stories shaping our world right now. Our goal today, it's to break down the major developments, from the top-level policy stuff right down to what's happening on the ground.
Yeah,
And pull out those essential insights, the things you really need to know to be well-informed.
Absolutely. It feels like the world hardly ever stands still, doesn't it? The pace is just relentless. And what's really, I think, illuminating is seeing how events that seem totally separate are often, well, deeply connected. It's like a complex global tapestry. So today, yeah, we're going to try and weave together information from lots of different places, show those underlying patterns, and give some much needed context on the issues that genuinely shape your world.
couldn't agree more. We're tracing those often hidden threads connecting these major global events today. We'll be digging into the situation in the Middle East, the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, also looking at those critical kind of weak spots in global supply chains, especially for rare earth minerals, indispensable stuff. And then the recent shifts in the crypto market, plus the intensifying talk around climate change and extreme weather. It's not just separate incidents, is it? It's more like components of this single, really interconnected global system. So let's get started unpacking how these forces are shaping things, right? We really have kicked things off with what is, well, undoubtedly the lead story everywhere, the ongoing situation in the Middle East. Reports coming out of the Israel-Iran dialogue, they're changing fast, really fast. And now we're seeing some significant movement on a truce brokered by Trump. And this isn't just talk. The IAEA, that is the UN's nuclear watchdog, they're apparently pushing for, and maybe even getting access to Iranian facilities now.
Yeah, and what's fascinating there, I think, is that it feels like more than just a pivot. It seems like maybe a recalibration. It suggests a kind of pragmatic shift in U.S. foreign policy, prioritizing de-escalation maybe over strict ideology, even from him. And the real insight, for me anyway, is how fast the global markets reacted. You saw Asian markets steadying, the dollar dipping slightly. It just shows that even a potentially fragile step back in a key energy region can, well, immediately give a tangible, if maybe cautious, boost to global economic feeling. It really does challenge that idea that only, traditional diplomatic routes can get such immediate global results.
It's quite the diplomatic dance, isn't it? But thinking about a truce brokered by Trump, given his previous strong stance, isn't there a big risk it's fragile? Like, what are the biggest hurdles to keeping this stable, especially with the region's history? And interestingly, we've also seen reports that the Trump administration has apparently postponed classified briefings for lawmakers on Iran. What do you make of that? Is it strategic, controlling the narrative, perhaps? Or just, letting delicate talks happen without too much outside noise?
That's a really crucial point. Controlling the information flow is often just as important as the talks themselves in these high-stakes games. It could absolutely be about managing expectations or, stopping leaks that could totally derail things. Now, if we shift focus a bit geographically northward, the just heartbreaking reality in Ukraine, it just continues, doesn't it? We're still getting relentless reports of Russian attacks, but the key development now seems to be the shifting calculation around Western aid. It's not just about how much aid, but what kind of aid. And President Zelensky, commendably, just keeps pushing tirelessly for those more advanced systems. And beyond the profound human crisis, millions displaced, infrastructure shattered, the conflict's ongoing impact on global food and energy markets it's a quieter ripple effect, but still really significant. The calls for peace, for sustained humanitarian aid, they're louder than ever globally, but the path forward still incredibly challenging, and then complicated by all the shifting alliances and economic pressures it generates.
It really does make you pause, doesn't it? Thinking about the sheer human cost. The resilience is, well, inspiring, but the cost, like you said, it's almost unimaginable. Okay, so from that immediate tragedy to these equally complex economic undercurrents. Now let's connect that idea of vulnerability to something different, but still critical. The weak links in our supply chains, especially for those critical elements. I'm talking about those indispensable rare earth minerals and magnets. They're in everything. Maybe the EV you drive, cutting-edge defense stuff, even the smartphone in your pocket. We've seen reports, for instance, about India. They have the world's 5th largest reserves of rare earths, apparently. But they're facing big hurdles. They just don't have the refining capacity or that crucial magnet-making infrastructure.
Oh, this point is so important. It really can't be overstated. And it's a perfect example of how just having the raw materials isn't enough. These rare earth magnets, they're astonishingly powerful, like 15 times stronger than your old steel magnets. They're the quiet engine behind so much modern tech. So India's situation, it's a stark illustration of a much bigger global problem. If you don't have the domestic processing, the IP, the manufacturing know-how, nations stay strategically vulnerable. It really highlights this critical need for, well, diversifying supply chains and for countries to invest in their own processing capabilities. Reduce that reliance on just one or two suppliers. And this isn't just economics, right? It's straight up national security, because the supply of these components can literally dictate a nation's tech independence, its military independence too.
Wow, okay. So securing these critical elements is clearly a huge strategic challenge. It makes me wonder then, if we look at other fast-moving economic areas like, say, crypto, are we seeing similar volatility patterns tied to these broader global factors? Bitcoin, for example. It's been on quite a ride lately, hasn't it? After things seemed a bit calmer, now we're seeing real volatility again. What's driving that dynamic right now, do you think?
Well, the crypto market is certainly never boring, is it? We're seeing this fascinating dance. You've got increasing institutional players coming in, but also the classic ebb and flow of retail speculation, the recent volatility in Bitcoin, and, by extension, the whole altcoin market that's basically any crypto other than Bitcoin. It seems to be down to a mix of things. You've got your macroeconomic stuff, like worries about inflation. Then there's the constant buzz around regulation, especially in big economies. And then, of course, you have these ongoing stories around halving events, where the reward for mining new Bitcoin gets cut, impacting supply and often price, plus big tech upgrades within the blockchain world itself. So investors are constantly trying to read these signals, right? Weighing up the long-term promise of decentralization against what the market's feeling right now. It's a space that definitely needs conviction, but also a good dose of agility.
Always on the edge, that crypto world. And it really just shows how fast things can pivot on a global scale. It underscores these deep connections we're talking about. Okay, before we start to wrap up, I just want to briefly touch on some of the, well, increasingly urgent environmental news hitting headlines everywhere. There's been a definite intensification of climate change discussions, mostly driven, it seems, by the undeniable reality of recent extreme weather events we're seeing reported across different continents.
Yes, absolutely. The scientific consensus is, well, clearer than it's ever been, and the impacts are becoming really tangible, demanding our attention. You can't ignore it. We're talking about record heat waves, baking places like Europe and parts of Asia, unprecedented rain, catastrophic floods, say, in South America, even weird cyclone activity in places that aren't used to it. These aren't just isolated incidents anymore, are they? They're symptoms of a change in climate. And this intensifying reality, it's really galvanizing policymakers, activists too, pushing for more aggressive emission reduction targets, stronger adaptation strategies, the urgency for genuine global cooperation on climate action. It's never felt higher. And it's certainly dominating a big chunk of international talks now. It's become a non-negotiable factor in diplomacy, in development planning.
A truly critical issue, one that absolutely demands our collective attention and action, definitely. So, wow, we've just navigated a pretty comprehensive landscape of global affairs today, from the delicate balance in Middle East diplomacy and the profound human cost in Ukraine, to the strategic importance of rare earths in our tech world, the ever-shifting sands of crypto, and the undeniable reality of escalating climate impacts. It's been a genuinely packed deep dive, and there's certainly no shortage of global stories to keep track of.
That's the truth, isn't it? The world just keeps spinning, keeps changing, and it's our privilege to try and help you make sense of it all, because understanding these diverse global challenges, it really encourages critical thinking, I think. Questioning assumptions. Knowledge is just so much more valuable when you see it in its broader context, right? It emphasizes the ongoing need to keep learning, keep considering different perspectives.
So here's a final thought to leave you with, something to maybe mull over. Given these deep interconnections we've talked about today across geopolitics, economics, tech, environmental systems, from a diplomatic truce maybe nudging global markets to accessing raw materials affecting national security or extreme weather driving policy changes, how does seeing these global challenges not as separate things, but as part of one vast integrated system, how does that change the way you might think about them or even approach them in your own thinking and actions? Thank you for joining us, for engaging in this comprehensive look at global affairs. We really encourage you to keep exploring that global horizon.